also hearing from all of you. So it's all of our wisdom. Okay, so Chloe, I think we had about 8 or so definitely registered, but I'm not sure if we're going to wait for more people to come or if we just get started.
Yeah. Let me see. I think we can get started.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the What Time It Is Yours workshop. And today we have our host, Rose. She's the founder of L3C Learning and Leadership, and she taught over 25,000 students in different areas, including project management and time management, etc. So, Rose, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Perfect. Let's get started.
Chloe, thank you so much. And I also want to shout out to Arkesha for inviting me in on the stage today. It is a huge honor to be here and to work with all of these amazing women in the room today. So thank you for jumping into this workshop. I could spend a full day with you going into detail, going into tech, going into the whole project managing side, but I'm going to start with some gaps and some myths, some mindsets, and some tactics that are going to help. So in the 1 hour we have together, I want to provide as much value as I can with you and for you today. I'm going to try to have a few minutes at the end for some additional Q&A, but if you are ready to go, could you light up the chat for me, please, and say go, because I want to know that we're ready to go. So let's light up the chat room. And if you're ready to go, you're ready to add some value to your days, you are ready to optimize your days, if you are ready to define the way you want to live your life, this is what this is about today. Okay, nice to meet you. Anusha, Anjana, very nice to meet you. Sarah, Khan, and I'm not sure who Khan is, but welcome. My name is Rose. As Chloe said, I do have my own company. I work internationally. I am very lucky to do the work I do. My background in project management, change management, time management, and also creative projects has led me to this very moment here. Now, yesterday, I was in the conference around Canada's top 25 women influencers. Has anybody heard about that? The top 25? Yeah, did anybody go to that yesterday? Okay, totally recommend next year. Let's get all there. I want to see some of you on that stage next year. So, top 25 women influencers. One of the 25 that were nominated, her name is Dr. Lucy Gilbert. And I had the opportunity to ask her one question. And I said, what is the mindset that you bring with you? I mean, you're a very successful woman. You've changed the world. What's the mindset? And she said, you define your life. Don't let anybody else define how you spend your time, what you can or cannot do. And that just, I mean, I know we all know this, like we hear that, but how do we apply that, right? And that's what I want to try to bring in our day today. So hit me up on LinkedIn, please, in case you're wondering how to get a hold of me. When you go to LinkedIn, if you join me there, and I'm just going to pop this in the chat, you can get a copy of my slides. I'll give you more reference material, all that stuff. And Nuzat, very nice to meet you as well. So I do a lot of work with academic organizations internationally as well. I work with a lot of women in the STEM fields, science, tech, engineering, math. So feel free to join my community on LinkedIn, and you will also receive a couple of freebies through the summer. We're launching a new online learning program, so I'll make sure you get all that. So see me on LinkedIn so we can stay connected, because this is just the beginning of a conversation. Now, if you were to hire yourself and you had to put yourself through an onboarding program, right? You'd be like, okay, I'm going to welcome you to the rest of your life starting today. So my goal is to help define and design your next chapter. And I want to welcome you to the rest of your life. And I want to start with a few myths that I hear a lot in project management and in time management. And I want us just to take a moment and let's just start with some myths that we have been told about time, about how to manage our day. And I'm going to look to you first. Can you think to anything you've learned along the way about how to manage your day and how to design your weeks and how to deal with time or time management? Can you think of a myth that you've heard of? And can you put that on the chat window? And or feel free to come on the mic for a second, okay? So anything you've learned along the way, myths around time management specifically. That time is money. Hiva, nice to see you here. Yeah, time is money. It's funny, I would say energy is money. The energy we put into our day is what makes the money. Awesome, let's hear some more. What you got here? I can't read it for some reason. I've got to open this up here. You snooze, you lose. Yeah. Anjana, there's no way to recalibrate the day. If you've lost your first hour, boom, you might as well let go the rest of the day. I mean, yeah. Okay. Any other ones we have here? Let's see what we've got. There's just not enough time in a day, Sarah. Okay, so some of these myths have grown with us. I think another myth I've learned is you have to take your calendar out and you have to time block everything that you want to do in order to be successful. And so let's just bust the 3 myths that I've seen over the last 20 odd years. And there we go. 3 myths. The first thing is that we can manage time. Time moves forward. Can we actually manage time itself, right? The second myth is software will fix it. You just need some Asana, Trello, Monday, ClickUp, Slack. You're just not using the right tools. Or the third thing, you're just lazy. I mean, that's the myth we tell ourselves, right? I'm just lazy. I'm just like inadequate in some way because I'm seeing this other person do it and how come I can't do it? I'm just being lazy. So let's hit up this first myth right now. When it comes to time management, when we think of the arena of time management, what are we actually managing? Can you put a few ideas on the board for me, please? So when you think about putting your days together, what are we really managing? I mean, I can't manage the forward progression of time. What am I really managing? And if you want to come on the mic, I'm still learning this platform, Bebby, but feel free to come on the mic on this one. What are we really managing? Let's see what we've got here. Eleanor.
Hi, it's Eleanor.
Yeah, go ahead. Eleanor?
So we're managing our energy, we're managing our priorities, we're managing our mindset, we're managing distractions.
Yes. Our focus, right?
Our focus,
especially,
right?
Yeah, in this attention economy. Mm-hmm. So everybody's trying to get at our attention, right? Our phone goes off every 2 seconds and we become behaviorally attuned to that. I think we've also in the last year, especially, we've had to adjust how it is we're going to manage our time. Anybody got impacted by the changes with the pandemic? Anybody? Hands up. Anybody? Did your time management change a little bit? Okay. Some of us productivity went up. Some of us productivity went down. So we had to adjust and adapt. Well, let's hit up that first one. That first myth. I just want to give you some other ideas in terms of what we are trying to manage. So here's some words on my screen. Focus and attention. Did you know there's 2 types of focus? There's task focus, and then there's people focus. So if you're taking notes right now, pretend you had to teach this. Take notes as if you're teaching it, all right? So 2 types of focus, task focus and people. And every time we switch between a task and a person and a task and a person, even on the other side of that screen, it increases our duration estimates by 25%, like if we don't manage that task switching very well. We're managing our actions and our behaviors. I'd like to share a really cool book that was just released end of the year. I have not got a copy of it just yet myself, but a lot of my students are reading it. It's called Tiny Habits. It's one of many books out there, but that's the latest, greatest. Another book that I think a lot of us benefit from, this one I've read and I use a lot of the data from James Clear's book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. So when it comes to how do we actually create behavior, how do we align our action to our goals, That's really what we're trying to manage. And all these other things, our energy, our commitment, our alignment to our values, our work culture, and our mindsets. Okay, so the first myth, we're not actually managing time. We are actually managing all these other things. So just in case you've been trying to put a project plan together, it's not just about the to-do list. It is about all the facets around that action. Myth number 2, how many times, it's more of a hands up thing, how many times have you ever done a plan or you put your schedule together and then you recognize that you weren't actually looking at it? Has anybody ever experienced that? If you put a plan together, a project plan, ever felt that? I do a lot of work with organizations, and what's amazing to me is we can sit down and we'll put like 2 weeks of planning into something, and we'll even put it on a wall somewhere and then we don't actually look at it, or we pop it onto some software. And what the challenge is we've planned really well, but a lot of people think planning is static. It's actually super dynamic. It's something we have to keep coming back and establishing a review on. So what I wanted to note is, for those of you looking to me today for some tools, at the end of this, I'd love to share some of my favorite software and tools, but with one caveat. You got to model your behavior first before you add your tool detail. So if you're not getting things done, or you just want to be more effective in your day, believe it or not, something as simple as a Post-it note or a brain book, something you can write your ideas down on, can be just as effective, because you're starting to behave around the estimating and planning piece of it, okay? So just a thumbs up if this kind of resonates with you. Myth bust number 2, the software isn't always going to fix the problem. Does that resonate with any of you today? Give me a yes on the chat window or a head nod. Okay, thank you, good. Let's go to the third one. This one really matters. Are you being lazy? Is this just a lack of discipline? I was raised by a soldier from World War II, so I can tell you that my whole fascination with time and structure and like that was instilled into me. And what I recognized as I was getting older, it had nothing to do with my discipline. It had a lot more to do with all of these questions. So what I'd like you to do is just put on your science hat for like 30 seconds, okay? So just throw that hat on, pretend hat, imaginary virtual hat. And I want you to start collecting data for the next 7 to 14 days. I want you to look at what you are getting done, not at what you're not getting done. I want you to think about, how are you estimating that time? Today, I'm going to give you a couple of technical tips to help. I want you to collect data around, what are you saying yes to? We're always saying yes to something. It's just, what are we saying yes to? So if I say no to something here, I'm actually saying yes to something here. So what are we saying yes to, and why? Like, why am I doing this? What values are driving those behaviors? Sometimes those values come into competition. How are you visualizing your plan? Are you actually trying to manage it in your mind? This is so funny to me because I do this too. Like, I'm speaking to myself as much as I am speaking to all of you. But if you've, I remember being at a gym one day, and long time ago, when there was such a thing called a gym. And I was on the treadmill, and somebody said, "Gosh, do you run marathons?" And I said, "No, I run marathon." Sorry, I said, "Yeah, I do run marathons, but I run them in my mind. I don't actually run marathons yet." So when you're running a project or a schedule or working with a team, are you actually taking it out of your mind space and visualizing it, putting it somewhere that you can get that feedback on? That's actually a key indicator of a successful plan, is getting it out of your mind. And then, when's the last time you made time to actively recover? What I mean by that is, for example, in April, I've had to book off like 2 days together straight. It's a big thing for me to take time off so I can actually recover from running the business and doing all my workshops and talks. And if I don't do that, I find that all that extra time that I thought I had gets eaten up. So scheduling that time to actively recover, the science very clearly shows how much your productivity gets boosted. So I know you know this up here. I just want to validate that everything I'm sharing with you here today is backed by science and research into productivity and performance. Even in your day. Now, if you want to marathon through a day, At any point, you can recalibrate and you can optimize and you can re-energize. So put on your science hat, start collecting data. And instead of saying, I'm being lazy, maybe there's something else going on here. Now, I want to kind of take a moment here. We're going to do our first exercise as a group. Could you grab a pen, paper, and let's just give you one piece of data that can maybe help you schedule better. It's super simple, super fast. And can you give me a thumbs up? Is my sound okay? Is the pace okay? Is this good? Okay, good. How do you know when you're having a good time? Is when time moves fast. So I'm having a great time. I'm checking my time here. We have till about 12 o'clock and then a few minutes extra beyond that. So what I'd like you to do with your paper, everybody should have one now. Can you write down the number 24 to indicate 24 hours in a day? And the first number I'd like you to find for yourself. Do not share this, please. This is personal. This is self-reflection. Do not share this number. The first number I'd like you to share internally with yourself. I want you to find out what your sleep hours are. Now, what I mean by that is the actual, I want you to include the wind down time and the time it takes you to really get a good quality sleep. For some of us, that's 9 hours, because it might take me an hour to wind down to finally get into sleep. So when you're scheduling sleep, how many hours out of 24 do you need to have that effective ramp into sleep? Okay. So let's just say for now, I'll say it's around the 8-hour mark. Okay. Now you can also include, for those of you who benefit from naps, sometimes if I'm running a really long day, I'll need just a 30-minute recharge nap. That works for me. That does not work for my best friend. She does not do naps. It kills her. So some of us are great at nap, or in terms of nap refreshment, something that works for us. For others, it doesn't. So I'm looking in total. How many hours of the day do you spend in active recovery? And we're starting with sleep. Okay. I'm going to focus on one battery that a lot of performance scientists look at, which is our cognitive battery. Now, we have a cognitive battery, a physical battery. Technically, it's all one big battery, but inside of there's different parts of our battery that we use. And we're going to start with our cognitive, our mental battery, okay? But I'd like you to think of a 24-hour period. How many hours in one day do you have high, excellent cognitive power? So again, don't share this. Just think about, okay, out of a full day, out of 24 hours, I know that I'm really, really cognitively effective for about 8-ish. And this number can change depending on what's going on in your life, depending on the context of things, depending on how much adaptation are you going through, how much change are you going through, what health issues you have at the moment. So there is no perfect number. But right now, and if you were to think about the last 90 days, where's that number right now? Okay, so between today and the last 90 days, what's your average high quality? Okay, so your excellent per day cognitive battery. Again, I'm just gonna, for math, I'm gonna keep it super easy. Right now, it is around the 8-hour mark, just for top excellent work for me. So that's the number of hours in a day that I can ask my brain to show up and do some real effective work. What I'd like you to do with that number, please, is please calculate 80% of that number. Okay, so take 80% of that number, and I'm going to mark that down on my board here. For me, it's going to be around 6.5 hours. And this number here is what we call work effort. It's actual cognitive work effort, 6.5 hours every single day based on the context of my life right now, I can schedule myself for really high quality results, high quality performance for 6.5 hours a day, which leaves me a 20% buffer for things like email change, last minute requests. So that still gives me about an hour and a half of pretty excellent battery power if I need to. The thing with and now stay where you're at if you could, I'm gonna throw something on the board. A couple of you, if you've ever worked with me before, you've probably seen this next chart. And Chloe, am I doing okay with the chart? Can you see this okay? Do I need to stop sharing my screen or is it okay?
I think it'd be better if you can write bigger or even like bring the pad more forward, because your camera is actually small and there's no way for me to make that bigger. So
okay,
I just want to write a little bit more bigger.
And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to stop sharing just for a second. Okay, and that should probably bring me up.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Yeah.
All right, because this chart matters, but did everybody got the last number okay, right? You took the 24, you got your sleep hours, and you got your daily cognitive hours. We're going to come back to that exercise. Let's tell a story. Here's how much effort, and here's time. And have you ever had a great idea? Now, this is actually me. This is me with a beautiful idea of something I want to get done. It could be a project. It could be my office being cleaned up. It could be anything, all right? And over here, I'm going to put a star. Make sure you can see that. Yeah, all right. So that star indicates a driver called a deadline. We're all familiar with deadlines. There's a quote, if it weren't for deadlines, nothing would get done. Have you ever felt that? Okay, I'm getting a few smiles on that. Here's what happens. I'm thinking to myself, okay, great idea. And there's when I'm going to get it done by. So I'm going to take out my calendar and I'm going to plan it out. And so I do what I've been taught to do, which is to predictively plan my effort all the way to the deadline. And in my mind, that's what's going to happen. Well, then I start to take action on this. And the first little bit of push is really good. Like I'm getting great momentum. This is fantastic. And then something happens like, oh, my boss asked me for something else, or oh, one of my mentors asked me, or oh, change request, change, yeah. And you know what? Oh, I've got another commitment I totally forgot about. And Netflix is at about there, as is Crave and Disney. And there is my deadline looming, and I realize it's coming, and I bump my effort beyond what I planned to the deadline. Does that resonate with any of you? Has anybody ever experienced that? Okay, hands up, yeah. Welcome to the human race. This is something we all do. This is actually a physiological component. There's something physiologically going on here. And I'm going to type in a word here that some of us may have never heard. I didn't hear about it until I started studying time management. Just like a circadian rhythm, each of us have a performance rhythm, and it's called an ultradian rhythm. And ultradian rhythms are where you're putting a lot of effort in, and then you start to see a decline in performance. Like if you get saturated, let's say you're writing, and then you start getting tired and your sentences slow down and your posture goes down. It's a very natural performance curve, and it's about 90 to 120 minutes for every sprint of performance that we do. But when it comes to scheduling, we still have the same type of performance drop unless we get ahead of it. And one thing that we have to recognize is, how are we driving our behavior? Are we driving it by deadlines that we're only accountable to other people? Or are we driving it by internal deadlines? So one of the changes that I'm going to be recommending today is adding a second driver to your deadlines. Instead of purely deadline driving something, which unfortunately results often in this type of behavior, we recommend work it back from your big deadline, work it back to today, and put in mini, just tiny little mini milestones, mini deadlines. But this time, don't just put the deadline on it. Definitely put a deadline, some kind of timestamp, like today at 3 o'clock, That's an example of a mini milestone, but you've got to combine it with a result and be really specific about it if you can. So if I say today by 3 o'clock, I will have got 50% of my draft of what it is I'm writing, I've got it done. Just 50%. That's all I'm going for. So you get really, really specific with the result. You combine that with the deadline. Plus, remember that cognitive battery? Like, it's funny, I was working with the university on this, and one of the head of the departments, he stopped and he said, Rose, we tried this. We gave every single student for all of their courses, we divided it into deadlines and results for all of their courses. And I said, stop. Did you consider how many courses each student had to result drive every day? If this is just one project, not a big deal. But I got 10 projects, it becomes a big deal, doesn't it? So you've got to look at your cognitive battery if it's a mental task, or your physical battery if it's a physical task. Just make sure your cognitive battery hours are taken into consideration. And this will allow for that action to be more effective. What's really cool is with how the brain works. When you put little mini deadlines or mini milestones into a schedule that are results specific, then two things happen. It's like putting glasses on for your brain. Your brain is able to see this much easier than it is able to see this deadline over here. And I'm going to prove that to you right now before we finish our battery exercise. All right, so we're on Thursday, right? How many of you can close your eyes for a second, think about the weekend? Okay, is there anything this weekend that you see yourself doing? Think about it. Can you see it? Can you experience it? What will you be doing this weekend? Okay, open up your eyes. Great. So did all of you have something you thought of for the weekend? Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a date. October 11th, 2023. What will you be doing? Can you see it? Can you feel it? Do you know? I certainly don't. Let's go a little earlier. September 1st, 2021. What will you be doing that day? Now that might be a little more experiential. Some of you may have, so think about, oh, September 1st, what will I be doing September 1st? Maybe I'm on holiday that day, right? So it's not going to be as tactile or as physical as when I ask you, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Your body and your brain can see it. Your motor cortex starts to light up. So what I'm getting into now, this is one of the gems is when you are scheduling, engage your brain in such a way that your brain can experience your schedule before your schedule hits. Tell yourself the story of your schedule before you run it. And that's going to totally light up those assumptions. It'll get you on path. And when you are working your estimates, we're not done yet with this number, but when you start working your estimates, use the 80-20 rule just to help you budget. How much time in a day for everything you're trying to hit? Are you going beyond that 80% mark? Because if you are, there's a couple other numbers you can play with. Let's come back to our exercise to finish this off. So 80% we know, in my case, is 6.5 hours, which leaves me about an hour and a half to handle change requests and so forth. But there is another form of cognitive energy. It's those marathon days. If I have to push myself beyond my 100%, think about those days where you have done that. What number comes to mind when you say, if I had to push myself, if I had to add energy drinks like coffee or what have you, if I had to do whatever it takes to get something done and I had to use my brain to do it, how many hours could I push through before I really need to recover? Think about that number. For me, and I don't like to do this, but it's usually between 16 to 18. So I'm just going to say it's about double what that is. I can push myself 16. Now, will I be highly effective for all 16 hours? Sometimes, yeah, but I have to prepare for the day after or the day before. I have to prepare for these, what we call marathon days. So for example, if I know I've got a 16-hour day ahead of me, the day before, I'll take care of all those little things that are going to get in the way of that marathon day. The day after, if I can, if it's not like a 3-day stretch, but if I can, I'll also do a wean off period. I'll make sure I dial it down. So I plan strategic recovery, which I'm just recommending. But for now, today, your marathon days, if you're going to run them, plan for them. Just get a bit more strategic on them. Remember that your brain will need to actively recover. Sleep is just one form of active recovery. Can you think of one other activity that you do that helps your brain recharge? And can you throw that on the board, please? Think of something you do that helps your brain recharge. Right now, I've got a Netflix show that I'm watching, which is really helping me recharge my brain. Okay, Eleanor, you've got a couple on the board. Walking and getting outside, especially during the COVID time, yeah? Anything else? Can I get one thing from each of you, please, on our chat window? So one thing that you do, is it cooking, walking? And why I'm saying this as you're thinking and postings, I want you to share with the team ideas here that work for you. When your phone goes down to 20%, when your phone goes down to 20%, we get a flag that says, hey, 20% battery. But nobody ever taught us to do that for our brains or for our energy. So if you're looking for any data around this, there's a great book. And it's actually also a great article called Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time, where they installed energy management programs for companies, Fortune 500 companies, and they saw their productivity skyrocket. Tony Schwartz and Catherine McCarthy. I'm just going to put this on the window. Oh, I love it. I love it. Painting, meditation, and yoga. Good food, Anjana. Yes. Cooking a new recipe, Sarah. Yes. Anything that's like uses what we call our default network, something where you don't have to think too hard. Oh, awesome. And for the record, those of you who have to find solutions quickly, strategy. Once you've focused on the puzzle or the problem enough to understand the problem, then you want to switch out of it and do a secondary task like cooking, painting, yoga, anything at all to disengage from the problem for a little bit. Why? Because when you get back to that problem, your brain will have a much better chance at finding insight and solution. To prove it, how many of you have ever gone on a walk or taken a shower, a nice hot bath, or you're cooking and boof, an idea comes, that insight comes in? Okay, this has been studied. So tiny little extra tip I wasn't going to put in the day today, but all these items that you put on the board, these are what we call your go-to items. These are things that you can strategically go to help optimize those days, especially those marathon days. So we're just getting a little strategic. And I'm going to come back and hop into mindset next. So any questions right now for me? Can I move forward, or do you want to stop and have any questions answered? Is this making sense? Oh, I got some direct messages as well. Okay, good. Okay. So if a question does pop up, go ahead, throw it on the chat window, and I will come right back to it. Let's share screen. All right. Great. So we are now in the second part of today, which is our mindset. I cannot tell how many times I have tried to help a client rejig their schedule, define their days, only to find that the core problem was actually mindset. So a mindset for today is kind of, how do we start our day? What are we telling ourselves? That's what I mean by the word mindset. And if you join me on LinkedIn, I've got a bunch of articles around mindset and how we can improve that. But I wanted to give you my best mindsets that I use, just like Dr. Lucy Gilbert has. She carries a mindset with her. So I'd like you to leave today with, what mindset could I try tomorrow morning, right? Or for the rest of my day today. So take a moment right now, though. Your exercise is to reflect on a day where you really got what you wanted to get done. It was an effective day. You had a successful day. I want you to collect some data. Go, what mindset did I use that day? Like, where was my mind at? What was I telling myself? If we had longer time right now, I would stop and we would actually host a discussion around this. But if you do have a mindset that works for your days, I'm asking you to share with our team. And I'm going to give you about 5 or 6 right now that work for me. But as I go through this, think of any that work for you and please share. Okay. So let's hop into some mindsets that work. And why I'm saying this is I can give you the best software. I've got a software development background. I could design software for you and it still wouldn't work unless I address this piece of it. So progress, not perfection. That is a mindset that I carry, especially when I am challenged with multiple projects and I've got to keep them moving forward. What I'm asking myself in this one is it more important for me to even move it forward a little bit, or do I have to stay on this and get every single detail correct? And if I do, what value am I bringing to this project? What value am I bringing to my day by hanging on this for too long? An example would be email. Oh my goodness, do any of you here get sucked in by the email, right? I remember the days where getting an email was like, poof, you've got mail. Yay, somebody sent me a letter, yay. Now it's like I wake up to 300 a day and I'm like, oh. So progress, not perfection. If I'm sending a reply to, let's say, Eleanor, hey, Eleanor, how you doing? Do I really need to spend 30 minutes toning it and choosing the right words and approach? Like, do I really need to go there? So that's what I mean by progress, not perfection. Let's just get it done and get it out of our way for some tasks. The next mindset, if everything is critical, nothing is critical. There's nothing else to say to that other than if everything is critical, nothing is critical. This is something I have to tell senior managers and executives across the world. If everything is critical, nothing is critical, where are we spending our money? Okay, so just heads up on that. And as somebody said here, time is money, so there you are. The next one, what's my wide lens? Why am I doing this? So when I wake up in the morning, before I check any communication stream, I try to just reflect and go through some mindsets, and I try to think of how my day is going to run before I run it. And I go, okay, why am I doing that again? Like, why did I say yes to that? Why am I doing this workshop? Oh yeah, right, because I actually love helping people. Okay, because I think time is valuable. Okay, that's my why. So wide lens, why are you doing anything? I do a lot of photography, so I use lens as an analogy. This is a mindset that is super tactical. What's my top 2? Okay, top of the day where you're like, I'm going to conquer the world. And at the end of the day, you're like, I got nothing done. How did that happen? We all have those days. So top of my day, I make a commitment to what I call my top 2 non-negotiables. What are my top 2 non-negotiable things that I am going to defend from the 4 time thieves? Interruption, distraction, overcommitment, and procrastination. So what is my top 2? What's on my not-do list? Okay, most of you have done a to-do list at this stage in your career. How many of you have ever been taught to do a not-do list? So just like I choose my top 2, I also try and consciously choose, okay, what projects, what people, what behaviors, what mindsets, what's on my not-do list today? Excuse me. And then what's on my go-to list? Everything that you put on the board there, painting, petting animals, good food, cooking a new recipe, walking, getting outside. These are our go-to items. So I've got my top 2 on my to-do list, non-negotiable things that I commit to, that I'm not flexible about. I've got my not do today. And mentally, I also have what's on my go-to. Like, for example, today after the workshop, I've got a lovely lunch that I am looking forward to eating. So that is a go-to, but it's something that I set aside and it's something I'm looking forward to help me recharge that cognitive battery. This here again is more tactical. The next time you look at your to-do list, I just want you to think about it. What's my intention? Is this one just getting it done, or is it getting it right? Because those are 2 competing intentions. And my job for teams is to help them get the right things done right, which is I need a full 8 hours with you on that. So we would just start today with what's more important with this, to get it done or to get it right? Because if to get it right equals more time and possibly more negotiation and more resources. Getting it done means reducing quality maybe, but it moves it forward faster. So where's my intention at today? And the last mindset that I was sharing with you, again, if you join me on LinkedIn, I'll give you my slide decks. I'll give you a whole bunch more reference material if this is helpful. This one here has helped me a lot because I was always that yes person. I was always that person that said yes to everything when anybody asked me to do stuff. And I had to teach myself a mindset, which is how I treat my time, is how I am teaching others to treat my time. Okay, so just a thought, just to remind us of that. So when you start the day, I try to dial into the mindset that's going to work best for that day. Just, again, a little bit more strategic, but I've learned and I've seen that this is very helpful in optimizing the value that I'm bringing to my day and to the lives of the people that I work with. So, and also my family, my community. So the mindset also helps set up the culture around you as to how you're going to run and how you're going to respond to your day. So mindset matters. And I wish somebody had taught me that 20 years ago. I wish somebody had just sat me down and said, forget about your Gantt chart, forget about your project software, forget about your calendar just for a second. Start with your mindset, and then let's work it out from there. Okay, so can I get a thumbs up or a yes? Are we good? Can I move forward? Because I want to give you 2 more tips on reducing what we call blind spots. Is this resonating with you? And if so, can you throw a yes on the chat window? Otherwise, I'm going to slow down and have a talk. Awesome. Yes, yes. Okay, Ken. Excellent. Okay. Sarah, how's this resonating with you? Got a little half thumbs? Some of it? Okay. Eleanor, how are you doing? You're good? Okay. Eleanor, you've taken a little bit of my training, my other workshops before. Is there anything new here that you're like, oh, you know, I never thought of it that way before we move forward? Anything you want to take away?
The refresher is fantastic, but I think that focusing on the mindset and all of these questions are really good. Understanding that why, the intention, and really that performance rhythm really spoke to me, because I always need to be reminded of making very specific goals earlier in the process, because I can go way over and do those 18-hour days, a couple of days in a row, and not necessarily, and then be surprised that I need to recover.
Right. And then all of a sudden, then we have this blame game going on, the shame game going on. We're like, I'm procrastinating again. No, actually, your brain and your body are trying to actively recharge your battery, and they don't care what you consciously want to do. Like, our brains are wired to help us survive, right? So that's why, Eleanor, the next time you know you got a marathon day coming up, just get a bit more strategic and say, okay, the day after, I don't do Zoom meetings, and I'm just going to do administration. I'm not even going to worry about people that day. You know, that's a way to accomplish that. Good job. And Eleanor, you both have the Rose card. Give me a call anytime. I've worked with you before. And this goes to my group. Anybody here who connects with me, my project teams call me Mama Rose. Mama Rose really cares to help. So we donate about 20 to 25% of our time through the year to mentoring. So feel free to reach out, ask questions. It's part of my Ikigai. And Ikigai is a word that I'm giving you today, is a thought, something to look up. It's a little secret thing to look up. If you haven't heard that word before, I put it on the chat window. Okay, let's move forward. Blind spots. A blind spot, like when you're driving, blind spots, what we don't see. That's why we have all those mirrors around to hopefully catch those blind spots for us. And I'm pretty impressed with those swanky new cars that are like, beep, beep, there's a car over there. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm liking that. Blind spots. So wouldn't it be nice if we had those blind spots help in our schedules? So I'm going to move to you. Can anybody think of one thing that derails their day that they were blindsided by, like something that happens in the day that you couldn't have planned for? Can you think of anything at all? Yes, and Anjana, I'm getting right to that. In fact, the next slide. Okay, so Anjana, I'm going to take that one, overcommitment, right? That could be a blind spot. I'm not recognizing them overcommitted. So Anjana, my first tip there is understand where your cognitive batteries are first. And I would actually take your whole week or your next 2 weeks and schedule to 80% capacity. Keep a reserve of 20% of time and energy off to the side. And what that means is if I have said yes to one too many things, I draw kind of like a wall in my calendar. The next request that comes in, this happened to me yesterday. Had a client ask me, hey, can you do an event on March the 25th? And I'm like, I am so sorry. I am booked through till the end of June right now. That's my wall. How about we talk about July, August, or September? So the concept of where's that wall for you, Anjana, like making sure I get that we're going to have to do the marathon until we finish our commitments to what we've said yes to. But one of the things I do is I make sure that I only try to book myself 80% capacity of workload. And that does include my family work if needed. Now it really depends on where we're at in life too. So feel free to reach out to me as well and I can detail more with you. But let's see if these next two help, okay? I only have 2 slides on this for today because of the time. So Anjana, this one's for you, but your question completely is one of the biggest blind spots, which is that overcommitment blind spot. So assess before yes is the new mantra. I'm asking you at the top of your day, the next time you run a day, ask yourself, how can I assess before yes? Each person, you can make your own protocol around this, but I recognize that I had to start learning how to assess before yesing. And assess before yes could be something as simple as this. Let's say Chloe and I are putting a presentation together, and Chloe might ask of me something to do for her. Let's say she's presenting. And I might say, all right, Chloe, so you're running a presentation? She might say, yeah. Okay, how long is it? So I'm trying to get specific. Graphics and color, or do we need graphics? Can I just do text? So we get really specific about the request. Now, why I'm saying assess before yes is a protocol that I put into place anytime somebody asks me to do something. Before I give them my yes, think of yes as like $1,000 bill that you're giving to somebody else if it's a change request. So think of it like money. And when I get that request in, I just ask a few questions in that conversation. And you know what's really interesting to me? 9 times out of 10, the person who is requesting something of me, they don't actually know what they're asking for to begin with. So that 2-minute conversation that we're just having right there saves us 2 hours of rework down the road. So that assess before yes conversation is something that I want you to try and practice with the people around you who are asking of you. So you just become more conscious of the assess before yes, but also the person who will ask the most of you will be yourself. So assess before yes for yourself. Every time you have, oh, new idea, great. Well, I have what's called an incubator board in my office. When I have these great new entrepreneurial ideas for a new program or a new thing I want to try, it goes on a Post-it note and onto the incubator. In fact, I use a Trello board for this now. But I have a zone for my great ideas that I don't have planning or resourcing around yet. So assess before yes. Can I get a thumbs up if that made sense? Do you have any questions around assess before yes? Okay, can you try that like on your next change request just for fun? Like see if you can take a breath and assess before yes, okay? The next time, try that. Let's go to the next one. This one here is technical. And Anjana, this totally will help. Again, when you have a chance to connect with me, I'm going to be releasing some free seats on my online learning center that's being released this spring. And in there will be a duration lesson. It's about an hour. And I want you to take it if overcommitment is a problem, okay? I want you to learn about duration versus work effort. For today's workshop, I'm going to do it super fast and super simple. This beautiful blue wall behind me. When I went to plan it, to paint it, I would have asked the question, well, how long is it going to take? So there it is. And I might have just used my previous historical evidence, like I've done this before. I painted a wall. And I might look at it and I'll go, yeah, it should be about 4 hours of work. Well, Rose, does that include the prep, putting the tape on? Does it include getting the paint ready? Does it include buying the paint? What does it include? So for the question that Anjana has on the board here, when you think about a task, And I won't need to stop sharing because this is just a very simple diagram here. And this is more of a mind tool going forward. Whenever you think of a task, think of duration, meaning the length of time from the start of a task all the way to the finish, the actual physical finish point. So the next time you go to plan your calendar, first thing I want you to do is decide what your starting point is. For the painting of the wall, is the starting point me going to Home Depot and buying the paint? Or do I already have the paint here? What is the physical starting point? Do I have to get a ladder? Is that my physical starting point? Make it real for your visual and your motor cortex, and it will be better for you on your schedule. So that's your starting point. Decide on your finish point. I'm just writing the word decide here. Decide exactly what your physical finish point is. Let's say you're writing an article, or you're writing an email, or you're putting a report together for somebody, or some data analysis. When you put it on when you're estimating how long it's actually going to take, you've got to figure out what the end point is. So when I press the send button to my boss, or to my supervisor, is that the moment that I mark this complete? Because the math that you have to do between this point and this point is going to matter. Now, painting the wall, if I said the duration of this was going to be 4 hours, the work effort, I may not be painting the whole time. I'm going to draw a curve to indicate work effort. Ready? Okay, I've got my paint clothes on. The paint is stirred. I begin painting. I am painting. I am painting. I am painting my first coat. And now I have to let the paint dry. And now I'm going to paint my next coat, and so forth. So the paint dry time, I'm not actually doing any physical effort. That is part of the duration estimate. The problem with most people's schedules is they only schedule the work effort that's required, that they think is going to be required. They don't actually take into consideration the paint dry time, or the time it takes for somebody to give me back an email reply, or the time it takes for me to find a parking spot when I have to go and do a grocery shop, or. So think about those duration busters. And the next time you schedule, I'm going to ask you again to add a little bit of time to account for all the extra stuff around the work effort. That's all the time I have today for that. But if you stay in touch with me, I have a little workbook that can help you calculate this. A cute little formula. You just put in your numbers, optimistic, pessimistic, realistic, and it can give you a number back. But it's really important for you to understand that when you're scheduling, when somebody asks you to do something, you've got to put that buffer in to account for duration. Okay, so that's at least the foundational concept. Does that make sense? Did I explain that okay? Because we're going to be ending off with our okay. Good. Was this new for anybody, knowing the difference between duration and work effort? Does anybody? Yeah, okay, good. That one piece of knowledge, as you start to practice it, I hope to see you have these aha moments as you start to really apply duration estimation versus work effort. So work effort is when I'm doing something, let's say with just my brain, and I'm sitting there, one thing I want you to know is there comes a point where our brains get saturated. When I'm doing like a long workshop, maybe even now, my voice will turn into the Charlie Brown teacher for my students. It'll start sounding like wah, 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 wah. So if you've been engaged with your brain for hours and hours and hours without a rest, it's just like, stop, I'm disengaged, I can't do this anymore. So when you're estimating duration, you've got to take into account that cognitive energy as well, so that you recognize, okay, after 90 minutes, I'm probably going to slow down. Great, extend your duration just by a little bit to give you that extra time. So we are now going to end off our day with a couple final little points, and then we'll have a couple minutes to ask questions, and then we're done. For this slide here, I always get these questions, how do you set a goal? And I'm like, oy, gosh, I started to hate the word goal setting because I think it just had so much, when I learned how to set goals, people never taught me how to set sustainable goals. There's a very big difference. So when you're looking at putting a goal together, I want you to think about the sustainability of it, of the energy and the effort towards getting it. So here's a couple, three of the biggest tips. First tip is break it down. Second tip is reduce the drama. And the third tip is focus on your results, not just the deadlines. So let's start with breaking it down right over here. The next time you look at your next few weeks ahead and you're like, I'm either overwhelmed or I'm ambiguous. Okay, so I'm going to put these words on the board here. Anytime you feel these words, overwhelmed by how much you have to do, or ambiguous, when you don't really know what's going on. That is the yellow flag that says, hey, stop what you're doing and break it down. Break it down into little chunks so that it makes sense to you. Break it down so that whether or not it's a step-by-step thing or you want to break it into categories of work, great. But identify the different smaller chunks of what it is you're trying to do. Now, even if it is something like, I've got to make a meal, okay, and I don't know what food I've got, nothing. Well, then I got to stop. I've got to break it down. Go, okay, I know I need food, like I need ingredients, but I know I also need some time, okay, and I need some kind of sense as to what style of food I'm going to cook. We break everything down. We do this naturally, but when it comes to your schedule, it's the same skill. I want you to look at your schedule and break it down until, even if you're taking a task, and if you notice you're being really resistant on a task, you don't want to do it, that's usually a flag. You've got to break it down until you've got the smallest unit of effort to get started on it. So even if you don't have the data and you break it down and all you get is a question, that's good too. Sometimes all you can move forward with is a question. Next thing, results, not deadlines. I've covered this. What I want to really underline today is the next time you say yes to something, make sure you really mentally draw it, experience the deliverable. Like, what does this report look like, sound like? How big is it? Is it going to be formatted for the clients that we're working with? What specific outcomes would I like this month, this week, today? For those of you designing software, developing ideas, that can be hard. I'm currently working on another startup, and it's so interesting how we're building this architecture around some software. And right now, I've got some of the team going, oh, and it's going to be big, and we're going to do this. I'm like, no, stop. Let's just look at this month or this week. What can we achieve this month, this week? Like, really tighten it in closer to you, closer to your time right now, okay? The next thing is reduce the drama. Collaboration is stronger than competition. And for all the women on the call here today, I've got to say, the leaders that have mentored me, I've been very fortunate. All of the leaders, men or women, that have mentored me, they have taught me the power of collaboration. And it's amazing when you've got a great project or a great team to work with, that when you can draw from that, or community, like the people you're meeting at this conference today, stay in touch with everybody here, because this builds a community through which you can start to ask for questions, ideas, advice. And my favorite type of question to ask is what's called the DOQ. The DOQ stands for dumb, obvious questions. A dumb, obvious question is a question that I will ask. I'm like, okay, I know this sounds like super obvious, but Chloe, how do I get into this session today? I know I should know how to do this, right? Like, that was a DOQ that I had to ask Kayla about 20 minutes before. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. Can you help? Okay, it's okay to ask for that help, because that reduces the drama. When I say drama, I'm talking about that stress, the anxiety, the energy that can really derail us. So the reason I highlight the word your instead of the word goals was because these are your goals. If you're always working on everybody else's goals, that's cool. I mean, hey, there's usually another reason why you're helping other people too. But don't forget your own goals as well. Make sure that you are putting enough time into those. So if you need help with that, again, hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to help. So one of my last points today is it's always your first day on the job. when it comes to the rest of your life. It's always your first day, starting with that beginner's mindset. So I say, first thing I try and practice, and I'm getting a lot better at it in the last few years, is setting my mindset. What mindset will I choose today? And if something goes bump, what mindset will help me recalibrate my day today? Okay. A question that I now ask myself, because I value sleep, like I've never valued sleep in my life before, is what will help me sleep tonight? What results will help me sleep well tonight? Because that's a self-motivator for me. Just to recap as well, blind spot busters, right? So what are my top two? What's on my not do? And how will I assess before yes today? And what's my own personal result expectation of myself? Okay, without blame or shame, collect that data and look what's working. So the look back is where I ask myself every single day of my life, what did I get right? We have always been taught to go, well, you're doing everything wrong, or what are you doing wrong? Well, a proper technical lessons learned in my field of project management, we always start with what's working before we look at what's not working, because it's obvious that something's not working. That's the easiest thing to find. The hardest thing to figure out is, what are you doing right? So every single day, practice the look back and ask, how did I contribute to my life today? And what's one small thing I can do better tomorrow? Okay, it doesn't have to be big things. Back to the books I already put on the chat window. Keep them small. And then looking forward. When it comes to looking forward, I recommend check your next 2 weeks. Keep your next 2 weeks in line. And this goes back to Anjana's question. Make sure that your next 2 weeks are at least visualized. If you can't visualize your next year or your next 6 months, many of us cannot right now because of the pandemic. At least get your next 2 weeks in sight and in mind. And if you don't believe me, next time, I usually have a cookie here as a thing. I ate it already because it was in sight. But normally I put a cookie on the desk here and I'm like, you try putting a nice cookie next to you and you're like, I'm not going to eat it. No, you will eat it because it's in sight. So same with your next 2 weeks. Keep your next 2 weeks in sight to help you recalibrate. And something else I do is what's called a brain dump at the end of my day, or anytime I'm really not anytime I'm getting interrupted or distracted too much, I'll take out my brain book, just a nice log book that I keep with me, and I just brain dump ideas out, or I brain dump thoughts that I need to get out. Because just like when you are taking a walk and your brain gives you this amazing solution and insight, our brains do the same thing when we're trying to focus on a task. It's like, poof, we have an idea, poof, we have another idea on something that's not related to what you're working on. And we call those distractions. But really, it's our brain doing the same thing. It's just giving us insight. So brain dumping anything that's distracting me is something that I do try and do as well. And the last point then today is work it back to today. Most people are taught how to work forward, like they take today and then they plan the next week and the next week and the next 30 and like, okay, that works, that's good. But if you really care about something getting done on time and you care about those overcommitment moments as well, I would recommend start from the 90-day or from the 60-day and work it back to today. And don't just take my word for it, try it out. The next time you have something you have to deliver in the next 30, 60, 90, take that deliverable date and work it backwards on your calendar and see what happens. It's a trick that we use to help gain our estimates a little tighter and to really check in on that work effort that's really going to be required. So I'm going to end off with, yes, you can. And join me on LinkedIn for slides and notes for any other questions you have. And we have a few minutes right now to ask and answer some questions. I hope that today, this 1 hour little intensive was helpful for you. And I'm going to stop sharing and back to the room here. We have a few minutes to discuss. So what about takeaways? Is there anything that you're taking away or anything that stood out for you in this last hour? So who would like to go first? Just do a quick little round robin.
So I do have a question, and also I've learned so much from your insights on time management, especially on like setting time block and on how to work it back today and do the grounding and resetting work. I think that's really like, okay, I should do it because I keep planning forward. But I do have a question about like delegation, when you as the only person can only do too much, and when you start delegating to like maybe your family members, your friends, or maybe your assistants. Do you have any tips on delegation of tasks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because Dr. Lucy Gilbert yesterday, when I asked her about the mindset question, she also added on to that. And she said, as much as you would like to do it all yourself, it's helped a lot for her to delegate and to hire help, even if you can't pay money for it, but to really share some of that workload. So Con, one of the challenges I think with delegation is the amount of time that it takes to onboard something or somebody to a task to get it to the quality that you need it. So you have to recognize that there's some onboarding time before they're going to get it. This happened to me this week with one of my lead producers. It was hilarious because I had given this person a task. I thought it was super clear. I was being all like, hey, I'm delegating. I'm getting this. You know, I got this. And then the person returned to me the deliverable, and it was like about 10% short of where I really needed it to be. I wasn't able to bring it to the client, which sucked because that ate up a whole evening for me. And I got angry at first, Con. But what I realized was, wait a second, Rose, did you give this person onboarding time? Did you actually show the deliverable of what you expected? And I realized I didn't. So what I did is I just took 30 minutes, did a version of it, brought the person in and said, hey, we're almost there. Here's what I need you to do next. So instead of telling them what to do, I showed them kind of how I would do it. And then they were able to take it the rest of the way. So that would be my other tip, is even if it's on a to-do list, it doesn't mean that I've done a good job of delegating it, right? So if you can show them an example of what you mean, that can help.
It was amazing because when you share about your experience with onboarding, I did have that issue too when I delegate a task, and when it doesn't meet the quality I expected, I get upset. But then drawing back to myself, did I do a good job delegating it? So that was a really good point. Thank you. I learned that from you today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad that resonated. It's funny though, but I had to have that talk with myself like 2 days ago. I was like, I thought I did okay there. I should know this. Thank you, Con. Okay, anybody else? Oh, I think I've just said goodbye to Sarah. Anything else that stood out for you today? And Eleanor, why don't I throw to you, because I know you've worked with me a little bit before. Was there anything else that was like, that was a good tip, I'm going to try that?
Actually, this has been fantastic. And I think your overview is really, really, really great, because in terms of setting your mindset for the day, I always start with, kind of being thankful for a beautiful day, the sunset or whatever, but I don't necessarily set the mindset for my work. I don't translate that. So I'm going to really focus on that and really look at my top two, because I never know how big those top two should be. So I really have a top 20.
Right.
And really related to that.
And Eleanor, to interrupt you right there, just a
Yes.
little tiny moment right in there. Don't leave the workshop saying, Rose said that I only had to get 2 things done every day. It's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you've got to decide on 2 that you will consider non-negotiable out of the 20 that you've got to. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you for that.
clarification.
And I also loved your point about what will help me sleep tonight. So that goes back to those have to be the non-negotiables, that when I go to bed tonight, that's done, I'm going to feel really great about it. And also the idea of what went right, because too often we think about, I didn't get that done, I didn't get that done. And the other part I think that really resonated was that duration versus effort, because I tend to write a list of things as opposed to really determining how much effort and energy, time, duration each will take.
And it's like that battery. It's like, we don't have a little flag that goes, hey, I'm getting tired now. So the other point to add to that is to learn about where your saturation points are. Like when you know you're not listening anymore, or like when I'm reading something and I'm like, none of the words make sense anymore. That's how I know I'm saturating. And so I've gotten better, but I mean, I've studied this for like the last decade, but even today, I still am very conscious about those saturation points so I can get a bit more accurate with how much estimate. It's funny, this week I follow the 80-20 rule. And this week, that 20% buffer got completely eaten up. But had I not had the buffer, I wouldn't have been able to do this today because this was a request within the month. And so that 20% buffer also is a good thing because it allows me to take on a couple things that I do want to say yes to that I wouldn't have planned, right? Because that's naturally going to happen as well. So
Yes,
think about
that
the
80-20
benefit.
is very good too. So thank you. I really needed this today. It's so perfect.
And
because
awesome. Well,
we never really, we don't stop learning about ourselves, about anything else,
right.
and about ourselves. And so when we're focused on always improving, it's great to be re-energized with something, even if we've heard it before, we hear it again in a new way because we're in a different spot.
That's right. Same here. The mindset thing, I've heard it for 20 years, but I'm like, wait, it makes so much sense now, much different than it did a year ago with COVID, like completely changed my world. And it's always our first day. It's always our first day on the job. Okay, so remember that. A pleasure to meet all of you. I just want to honor your time as well, since it's quarter after the hour. And Chloe, thank you so much for co-hosting and being here today. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Rose, and this is excellent. And I'm pretty sure that everybody got lots of takeaways today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Con, and as well, and stay connected with me on LinkedIn. As I said, I'm happy to deliver the slides if they help you in a PDF format. Happy to do that. Okay.
Thank you, Rose.
Awesome. Okay, well, go have some lunch. Let's recalibrate. Pleasure to talk with
Sorry.
I was just saying, now you can sing, Rose, because Rose is an amazing singer as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I run a production company as well. I'm a producer and a composer. We write music for film and TV. It's my other company. And that was the person I was telling about. I'm like, the person brought the deliverable. I'm like, this is not what the client needs. Awesome. Yeah, and hey, if you liked it, I also appreciate the testimonials on LinkedIn. Please, it helps. Your testimonial helps other people because that means I get to do this for more people. So thank you as well. Appreciate it. Awesome.
Cheers.
I'll see you again. Cheers, back to the main room. Bye, Khan. And bye, Shama. Bye, Kihan.
Yeah, so right now it's the lunch break. It's going to be 40 minutes if you want to go back to the main stage at 12:55. And I'm pretty sure that Shaima has already posted a link here as well for the main stage. And enjoy your lunch.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Good night.
Bye.
Good afternoon. Bye.